Okay, welcome everybody to Parsha's VeYishlach. So the Parsha, as every Parsha in the Torah, begins and ends on the same theme. And this week's Parsha is strange because the theme that it begins and ends with, sometimes the theme is easy to see, but nevertheless hard to understand. And that's no exception here, because the Parsha begins with Eisav, Esau, and ends with Esau. So this is a Parsha about Esau. And that's not how usually we think about the Parsha, but Esau is a very important character, because when we think about it, Abraham had two children, Ishmael and Yitzhak. He had more children actually, but the heritage that becomes eventually the Jewish people goes through to Yitzhak. Yitzhak has two children too, Eisav and Yaakov. So whereas we think of Yaakov in the same way we think of Yitzhak, however, their heritage passes through to Eisav as well. Eisav cannot be separated from our purpose in the Jewish people and our mission in life. And therefore, understanding Eisav is very crucial in understanding ourselves and our role. And to in that end, we're going to focus on five significant questions around this week's Parsha. So if you remember last week's Parsha, Vayetze, Yaakov returns back to the land of Israel. This week's Parsha, he enters the land of Israel. But last week's Parsha, he leaves Lavan on his way, or that's how the Parsha really ends. He leaves on his way to the land of Israel. There, Lavan chases after him to kill him. Hashem comes to Lavan and tells him, "Don't mess with my boy Yaakov." Let's just see. I've got some messages coming in here. Oh, okay, very good. My WhatsApp was disabled. I did something I shouldn't do. I don't know quite what it was, but they disabled my WhatsApp. So if you're trying to message me through WhatsApp, it's not going to work. So anyway, getting back, I digressed a little bit. So in last week's Parsha, Lavan comes chasing after Yaakov, and God comes to Lavan and tells him not to mess with Yaakov. So therefore, when Lavan meets Yaakov, he's significantly pacified. In this week's Parsha, as he comes into the land of Israel, Yaakov meets another mortal enemy, Eisav. In fact, we say in the Haggadah, the Aramean tried to uproot everything, tried to kill us all. That's Lavan in last week's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, Eisav comes to meet Yaakov and to kill him. He comes with 160,000 warriors, and he means business, so much so that the Torah describes Yaakov's reaction to this. V'yara Yaakov Mo'od. If you want to look it up, it's chapter 32, verse 8. Yaakov was very afraid, very strange, unusual, because the Torah doesn't give many adjectives. It rarely describes people's emotions, but it said he was very afraid, and it was distressing to him. He wasn't having a good day. Interestingly, that we talk about in the Haggadah that Lavan tried to kill us, but we don't mention Eisav trying to kill us. Nevertheless, that's what Yaakov meets. His book ended. He leaves. He's on his way to Eretz Israel. Leaves Chutz La'aretz, and Lavan tries to kill him. He comes into the land of Israel, and Yaakov and Eisav tries to kill him. Now, I want you to picture you're on a plane going to Israel, and halfway across the Atlantic, God forbid this should happen, but the pilot gets on the air, and it's a disaster. The engines are failing. He doesn't know what to do. You're going to crash and burn in the middle Atlantic. There's the nearest land source is too far away, etc., etc. Nevertheless, a miracle happens. Somehow he manages to keep the plane afloat. It's touch and go all the way. Your emergency landing in Tel Aviv, you're safe. On the way back, you have your movie, you have your dinner. Take a little nap. It's a very nice trip. As you land in JFK, the pilot gets on the air, says, I didn't want to tell you in the air because there's nothing you could do, but the engines failed. It was touch and go the whole way. We nearly crashed and burned, but thank God we were saved and everything's okay. In other words, in one, you know the danger we're in, and the other one you don't know. Which plane would you rather be on? Seemingly, the one where you don't know. The problem with that is, and that's how most people answer. The problem with that is that the one where you don't know you're in danger is in Chutz La'aretz. It's in America. And the one where you do know the danger you're in is in Israel. That's where Yaakov was in Israel. In other words, when he was outside of the land of Israel, God comes to Lavan and tells him not to mess with Yaakov. In the land of Israel, God does not come to Eisav to protect Yaakov. The Midrash says that he did save him at the last minute because when they hugged, Eisav went to bite Yaakov's neck and God protected him. But that's a midrash, and it's not clear in the text that that's the message that the Torah wants to give you. The message the Torah wants to give you is there's no noticeable protection or interference from God in the land of Israel. And Yaakov doesn't know he's safe till he's safe. It's tension all the way that builds up all the way from the moment that he enters the land of Israel till Eisav is pacified. It's tension all the way. Whereas in outside the land of Israel, Yaakov doesn't know he's in danger till he was safe. After he meets with Lavan, Lavan is the one who tells him, I was going to come kill you. So why is that? So in other words, you think it would be the other way around. It really isn't. First of all, the simple message is quite clear that even though in the outside of the land of Israel, in other words, the fact that Yaakov did not know he was in danger did not help him. He just didn't know. In the land of Israel, you know. In other words, if Jews are in danger in the land of Israel, they are in just as much danger outside the land of Israel. It's just in the land of Israel, they know the danger they're in, which is a much healthier experience because you can do something about it. That's why outside of the land of Israel, Chutz La'aretz, Jews are shocked by the level of anti-Semitism. They are not shocked. And some are actually, but for the most part, they're not. They're not shocked in the land of Israel, maybe to the degree that they've experienced it, but certainly not that the fact that it exists. In America, they're shocked. They even though there were, if you dug a little bit, you could find things, but it was you had to really dig. And most Jews didn't want to know about it. They ignored it. So therefore, on a simple level, it's better to know. But on a deeper level, which experience are you going to? From which experience are you going to grow from the most? Obviously, the one in which you've gone through the danger. Oh, Yechiel, finally, we got to see somebody here.
Hi, Rabbi.
Thank you for joining.
Hi, Corey.
There's Kari and there's Fireflies. I think that's Neil. I don't know who Neil is, but he's a firefly.
That's the AI. That's the AI that Zoom puts on everybody's Zoom now. The AI is called Firefly.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard the question. The 5 questions we're going to be asking on the Parsha. But on a deeper level, why don't we go to roller coasters? What is really entertainment? All entertainment is just danger. Video games in general are all about crises and failing. I mean, it's easy to avoid danger. Just don't play chess. Why playing a video game where you're fighting against bad guys? Just don't play. I mean, you're right, it's not real, but nevertheless, what is the gain in not winning anything? You don't win when you win. All you can do is lose. The human beings need danger to feel meaningful in life. That's just how we're built. Okay, we can go deeper into that, but nevertheless, on a simple level, that's what it is. And therefore, the experience, if you can handle it right, if you can think about it the right way, it's a very empowering experience to go through things like this. My father, may rest in peace, he told my mother too, told me about their experience of the Blitz of London. It was a very meaningful experience for them, and it shaped a lot of their personality in meaningful ways. So that's the first question, and we're going to deal with that separate. We're answering that one separately because the next 4 have to do with the same theme, which is Eisav. So Yaakov comes into the land of Israel and he sends messengers to Eisav. Right? Now, why does he do that? It's only 1 or 2 possible reasons. Either he wants to find out that Eisav still bears a grudge against him and wants to kill him, or he doesn't. It's one of the 2 things. He's not looking. Yaakov knows full well who Eisav is. And he's not looking to be buddy-buddy with him and, go over the family history and share photographs and things like that. So for what purpose does he reach out to Eisav? Either he wants to find out, either Eisav still bears a grudge after 20-odd years. Is he still holding a grudge about that little incident about stealing the brachos from his father? Is it still bothering Eisav? Or has he gotten over it now? Right? Either way, what's the point? If Eisav does hold a grudge against him, well, it's not going to be too pretty, which is exactly what happens. And if he doesn't hold a grudge against him, okay, I don't need to know. What does the knowledge do for him, for Yaakov? Why is he looking to stir up the hornet's nest? There's no gain in finding out this information. It's either he doesn't hold a grudge against you, in which case, fine, he'll leave you alone, or he does, and then you're in big trouble, which is exactly what happens. So why does he need to know? Why can't we just live with, I don't know, and we'll be fine with that? Isn't that better than what he actually did face? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is in the 5th Aliyah. We are told that Devorah dies. The Midrash comes along and says it wasn't Devorah, or at least it was Rivka as well. But nevertheless, Devorah dies. Devorah, this is the only time in the whole Torah that Devorah is mentioned. We don't even know who she is. The Midrash comes along and tells us that Devorah was Rivka's handmaid. Now, what was she doing with Yaakov? So when Yaakov left Rivka Rivka said to Yaakov, her son, when you get out of town because your brother is mad. And when he calms down, I'll send a messenger so you can come home. That was Devorah. Well, that seems a little strange because Eisav was still mad. In other words, what was the message that Rivka sent through Devorah? Was it, it's okay, you can come home now, everything's fine? Or was it, don't come home now, right? Because Eisav is still mad. If Eisav was still mad, you didn't need to send Devorah. And she did send him off Devorah with that message. Then what is Yaakov doing contacting Eisav? Seemingly, Rivka sent Devorah to tell him, everything's good, you can come home now. Right? Which is seemingly a tremendous miscalculation.
And isn't the answer to the first question?
What's that?
Isn't the answer to
Yes, go ahead.
To the question about why did he even send messengers to Eisav to find out if he was angry or not? That's so he could prepare, right? Do the preparations that he needed to do to prepare.
What was that?
That's why Yaakov sent messengers to Eisav, because he wanted to be able to prepare if he was angry. But if he's not angry, he wouldn't need to prepare with war and gifts. And
but he only had to prepare because Eisav was going to come kill him. He didn't have to prepare if he wasn't going to come. He
didn't have to prepare if he wasn't. If who wasn't going to come?
If Eisav wasn't going to come, what does he have to prepare for?
But if he found out that Eisav wasn't angry with him, he wouldn't have to prepare.
Yeah, he'd go home, go to Starbucks, have a cup of coffee, take a vacation in the south of France. I don't know. He's good. We're good. He's good. I'm good. You're good. We're all good.
So isn't that why he had to send messengers?
For what? For what purpose?
To find Eisav's mood.
But there's no upside here. He doesn't expect that Esav's been pining for Yaakov to return home so he can make a birthday party for him. Okay, let me get the band. No, Yaakov is not anticipating that. He either thinks that Eisav wants to kill him, or he doesn't. But either way, there is no upside here. So why does he contact him?
Well, wouldn't the opposite have been not such a good idea? I mean, if he went into Eretz Canaan without informing his brother would consider that like an act of war, no?
Why?
Because it's like, well, Eretz Canaan is now mine, and like you went away, stay away. And also like it's the continuation of the argument with the blessings.
Why is that a continuation of the argument?
Because he felt that he deceived him. Eisav felt that Yaakov deceived him, and he never did any reparations.
Yeah, Eisav felt he deceived, correct. And who didn't do the preparations?
So I'm guessing someone like Eisav would want someone like Yaakov to
recompense.
Yes, that's the word. To recompense him for all the troubles and deceit that he perpetuated.
That may be true. That may be what Yaakov would think, but it wasn't true. Eisav is not pacified by all the things that Yaakov sends him. And he only sends it to him because he comes with an army of 160,000 men.
Okay, so when I said that Eisav would consider it an act of war if he didn't tell him that he was coming, you seem to agree with that. Why is that?
Say that again?
When I said that, I thought that the reason why Yaakov contacted Eisav is because if he hadn't contacted him and went to Eretz Canaan, Eisav would have considered that like an act of war.
No, I don't think he would have considered an act of war. What?
Okay, then
Why?
I have no idea. Why would they? Why does he do this then? Why even bother contacting Eisav? And also, he's not contacting him with regular messengers. He's contacting him with malachim, right? I mean, these are malachim. And does Eisav know they're malachim?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a very good question. But either way, Eisav is not perturbed by it, seemingly.
Also, why doesn't he just send a message to his parents? Won't Eisav get the message if he sends it to his parents?
Why? He's not living near his parents.
Isn't he on his way to go see his parents in Eretz Canaan?
Who, Eisav? No.
No, Yaakov.
Yes,
In other
Yaakov. Yaakov is it's an interesting point though. He takes a while to finally get to Yitzchak. He's a few stops on the way, which is a little strange.
The
But
whole thing
nevertheless-
is strange now that you asked this question. It's like, why don't you send the messengers to your parents to let them know you're on your way? And once you
Yeah.
tell your parents, Eisav is going to find out. So what's the point of directly contacting Eisav?
Exactly. That's the question. There you got it.
Oh, you're
So
saying I just
that's what-
refined the question?
That's question number one. What was the point of the messengers? What second question is Rivka sent Devorah to tell Yaakov to come home, but that was only supposed to be if Eisav had got over his issues. Eisav still did not bear a grudge. Seemingly, that's not the case.
Oh, she sent it because she was dying.
No, she wasn't dying.
I thought that was the whole point purpose for sending her nursemaid to Yaakov to let him know that she doesn't she die after that? I don't know. Maybe I'm
She
confusing
died-
a bunch
she
of
died
things.
on the way back. On the way back, Devorah dies on the way back.
Oh,
But-
Devorah dies. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm confusing. Okay.
Right, right. So Rivka sent Devorah seemingly to tell Yaakov that all is forgiven. You can come home now, which will seem to be a major miscalculation. Now we can live with that, but nevertheless, it's a little strange.
That was the whole point of Devorah. That was going to be the message. Oh, by the way, you can come back.
That was what Rivka said to Yaakov before he left. When your brother calms down, I'll send a messenger that you can come home.
Well, maybe he has calmed down, but now that he knows his brother's coming, he's getting all agitated again.
Right, so it would seem to be that Rivka miscalculated, which is a little strange.
So what's the answer to the question?
Okay, we've got one more. We've got two more questions. Right? And they all play on each other. Right? Now there's a very strange after Yaakov fights with the Malach, right, with the angel of Eisav. Right? After Yaakov fights with him, he's limping. You can look at chapter 32, verse 32. Right? It says, "VeYishlach lo Hashem." So see, he fights with the angel, right? And he can't beat the angel. Can't beat Yaakov. Yaakov endures, right? So the angel touched Yaakov on the thigh, and that's why we don't eat the Gida Nasha. Right? You can't get good. The best steak is difficult to get. You got it?
Uh-huh.
So he walks out, right? And the sun shines. And the sun shines. Kasher ever Puniel, as he passed by this place called Puniel. And he was limping on his hip. Right? You with me?
Uh-huh.
So look at Rashi. Rashi says he was limping. Hayat solea, he limped when the sun shone. Seemingly implying he's perfectly fine till the sun shines. Now that he can see, oh my goodness, look at me, he starts limping. He doesn't limp up until that point.
I never noticed that detail. I always thought he was limping because of the fight.
He was. But it was only once the sun rose.
What is the significance of that?
It's a very strange thing.
I mean, one would assume that he wouldn't travel at night, and so that's why he's now traveling when the sun rises.
Whatever. But nevertheless, Rashi wants to come and tell you that he only limps once the sun shines. He's perfectly fine till the sun shines.
And what is Rashi trying to say here?
Exactly. Got the question. Glad you got the question. And the fourth question is, we know the story soon after this of Dinah was abducted and abused. Right? And Chazal's come along and say, why was she abducted and abused? Because when Yaakov met Eisav, he put Dinah in a box because he didn't want Eisav to see her.
So why not do that with Rachel also? I have a
With
beautiful wife, Rachel. I don't want Eisav to see her either.
It says that Yosef stood in front of Rachel to make sure he didn't see her, but seemingly he couldn't do that with his wife because that would look too suspicious. He couldn't put his wife in a box, whatever reason. It doesn't tell us, but nevertheless he didn't do it with Rachel. But with Dinah he did because he didn't want, right? And Chazal say that because he did that and didn't be open to the possibility that Eisav might want to marry her. So she was put. You didn't. It says that Chazal say you could have offered her in a heter way, in a way that would be permitted, and because you didn't do it in a proper way, she was taken in an improper way.
So why should she suffer for his mistake?
Okay, that's a slightly different way of looking at the question. Right? And the rabbis talk about that she did wrong, but nevertheless, right? What did Yaakov do wrong? Right? That he put her in a box to protect her, obviously.
In other words, he gave up on his brother. Like I remember reading something, one of the essays that Rabbi Noach Weinberg Zatzal wrote, is that he basically gave up on his brother.
That's true. That's true, right? So now you put all these things together. What do we have?
They're all connected, all these questions?
All these questions are connected, exactly. Right? So now going back to the first question, why did he contact his brother? So we started off, remember the theme of the Parsha is Eisav. The Parsha starts with Eisav and it ends in Eisav. The Parsha is all about Eisav. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we tend to think of Eisav as being irrelevant to being a Jew and Torah. But the Torah is making a very important point here. Eisav is a key fundamental part of our mission in the history of the world. Whereas we might be able to dismiss Yishmael, Eisav is in the category of the children of Yitzchak, which the bracha came through with the promise of the Almighty to his children, to Abraham's children, comes through to Yitzhak, and Eisav is a part of that. If you go all the way back to the question right at the very beginning, of told us, Parsha's told 2 weeks ago, was the question. If you remember, there's a famous midrash when Yaakov is grabbing hold of the heel of Eisav, because Eisav, when they're being born. So Rashi says a very strange thing. It's like you have a tube and you put one marble in and then put another marble in, right? And then when you turn the tube upside down to let the marbles out, the one that came in last comes out first.
Mm-hmm.
So Eisav, who comes out first, therefore must have been the second child in the procreation in the procreation of the children, and therefore the firstborn should be Yaakov. So Rav Yaakov Weinberg points out that this is absurd, because firstborn, the rights of the firstborn have nothing to do with whatever's going on in the womb, or how the children were conceived. Even if we had the technology to be able to figure out of twins which one was actually conceived first, it would be irrelevant. Right? It doesn't affect a birth order or rights of the firstborn. In other words, your first child are twins. The firstborn of those twins gets Pishnaim, twice as much as all the other siblings, and that's determined by the first one out of the womb, regardless of anything else that's going on. So what is Rashi coming to tell you? That Eisav came in, was the second marble into the tube, which is, we all know, is not how the womb works. The womb is like a room, and they jostle around, and just because you came in last doesn't mean you're going to come out first.
Maybe he's talking on a spiritual perspective. He's not talking about the physical. Maybe he's saying from a spiritual perspective,
right.
his job was secondary, but the primary job was Yaakov's.
Right.
But we still need a secondary job.
So this is the debate between Rivka and Yitzhak. Yitzhak said, I have 2 children, and if we have an Eisav, it must be because he can be redeemed and reformed, because he knew clearly, the pasuk tells you that both Rivka and Yitzhak knew that Eisav had issues, had problems. It's impossible to see that he was not on the same page as Yaakov. But Yitzhak believed that if I have an Eisav, it must be because I have the mission of reforming an Eisav, and he can be reformed, which is a very powerful, important Jewish idea. The most damaging thing you can say and believe to a child is you're hopeless. Right? Never say those words. Right? Don't feel those words, because your children can hear it in you. They feel it in you when you've given up on them. Right? So Yitzhak did not give up on Eisav. He thought he could be reformed. It must be that if I have this child, that he can take over the role to which the firstborn is supposed to be. He's going to be the Cohen. Right? And Rivka said, no. Eisav's role is, as Rashi points out, it's like the servant of the king. So the servant follows the king. But if they go into a narrow room and they have to come out, so the servant's going to come out. The servant is going to come out first. Eisav's role is the service of Yaakov. And that was their argument. Yitzhak eventually realizes that she's right, and that's why he says to Eisav, the brachas in Parsha's told us, the brachas that Yaakov got were never going to be yours. Even if Yaakov had never tricked you, you would never have got them, because you're not the firstborn. You are not the child that Yaakov is. You are not that. You don't fill that role, but you have a very meaningful role in perfecting the world along with Yaakov. Right? the technology that we are using right now to be able to learn together is all out of Eisav. This is, we are fulfilling this role, this mission, this partnership between Yaakov and Eisav right now. But it's taken 4,000 years of grueling, painful experience. But there is no way that Yaakov is going to fulfill his role as a light to the nations without the help of Eisav. Right? If we Jews have been sitting in Israel learning Torah and teaching Torah, right? There's no one in Australia is going to get the message. They need a telephone at least. Right? Zoom really helps. That's Eisav.
So are you saying that that's the reason why he contacted him, is because he was hoping that maybe he was amenable to working together on the mission?
No.
No, that's not the reason.
No, it wasn't that he was necessarily amenable to working together on the mission. He contacted him because he has to get him to be amenable to working on the mission. This
is his effort to start talks.
Right. We got to figure out, how are we going to work together? How is this going to play out? My mission can only be fulfilled with you. That is why the Jewish people have always lived in the majority in the lands of Eisav and secondary in the lands of Ishmael. But they never really lived in Africa. They never really lived in China. There were communities, small communities in these places, but we always tended to be in the lands of Eisav and the lands of Ishmael. But the majority is in the lands of Eisav, for the purpose of getting Eisav to fulfill his role in supporting Yaakov, which is something that would be unimaginable even 100 years ago, but it's definitely very visible today. Right? It's amazing.
The Abraham Accords, yeah.
Not just the Abraham Accords, but up until the Second World War, most technological advancements, most science was only for the purpose of war. The countries, the biggest expenditure of every country in the world, in the Western countries for sure, was their war department. So that when there was a war, that's why they always went to war every 40 years or so, because the only way to stimulate the economy. The idea that you had a consumer, an economy built on consumerism was unthinkable before the Second World, for sure before the First World War. People lived the same simple lives they've always lived. The idea that people want to buy washing machines and sewing machines and toasters and fridges and things like that was not thinkable. There was nothing to buy. There was nothing to sell. Right? So the idea that we use technology or our thinking to improve the quality of life amongst humanity was not doable, and that was not an idea. So it took the Jews in all of the world, in the Western world, to convince them that, like, you should maybe just think about medicine just to cure diseases, not ones you catch on the battlefield. Right? Well, nevertheless, still a tremendous amount of inventions are coming out, because the internet itself was a military invention, came out of DARPA. Right? So Yaakov contacts Eisav because he has to contact Eisav. When Rivka sends Devorah to tell him, your brother has calmed down, that's true. He had calmed down. But the animosity that underlies the relationship has not gone away. In other words, there were three possibilities by which the Yaakov and Eisav could relate to each other. it could have been the way that it fell out, which is that Yitzhak realized that the Rivka was right.
Mhm.
It could have been the way that Rivka initially suggested, right? Or it could have been that Rivka had not done anything, and Yitzhak would have gone all the way to bless Eisav and then changed his mind. In other words, let's go through the worst scenario first. Let's suppose Rivka did not tell Yaakov to go in and trick his father. Right? What would have happened? Eisav would have come into his father and presented himself to Yitzhak. What would have happened?
So what we said last week was that Yitzchak would have figured out that he wasn't ready to do the job that he was.
Right. When he said that famous line. Right. Very good. When he said that famous line, the hands are the hands of Eisav, and the voice is the voice of Yaakov. If it would have been Eisav, he would have said the hands are the hands of Eisav, and the voice is the voice of Eisav. I thought by doing this mitzvah, you would have reformed. Right, Ifar? That's what Yitzhak thought. Now Yitzhak is right that when everything is on the line, Eisav does get it. Winston Churchill said this about America. You can always rely on America to do the right thing. That is after they've exhausted every other possibility.
It's like, let's see if we can avoid taking the responsibility, but okay, fine. We can't avoid taking the responsibility. So, okay, let's just do the right thing.
Right. America does not build airplanes the way Israel builds tanks. When Israel builds a tank, they build a tank to be the safest possible way they can build a tank. America builds airplanes by studying the ones that fall out the sky. After a plane has fallen out the sky, this is not just airplanes, this is everything. Right? After people die, after there's a tragedy, up until there's a tragedy, everything's fine. Right? The reason why the health of America is such a mess, is so bad, is because until you get to the pandemic, everything's fine. They don't do anything. Now in the Middle Ages, right, that meant that you had a lot of problems that you could deal with that were, the Black Plague and other things that were not popular in those days. But when you got modern society, where you can just build up a tremendous amount of unhealthy foods and practices, so that not one particular thing is bad for you, but so many parts of our society and our lifestyle is bad for you, so that you get this whole onslaught of very indeterminate causes. It's hard to pinpoint any particular thing. Why? Because America only does anything, the Western world only does anything when there's a problem. Up until there's a problem, until people's limbs start falling off, we don't deal with anything. Right? That's not how Israel does.
Are you saying this is sort of like what you explained to us about the tzaddik versus the chassid? The tzaddik deals with the problem in a reactive way, whereas the chassid tries to be proactive and avoid the problem being a problem to begin with.
That's right, because how did Eisav present himself? As a tzaddik.
Because he would have questions for his father to make it appear like he was such a tzaddik. Do you have to hide salt?
Exactly. He didn't appear as a chassid. He tried to pretend that he was a tzaddik. That means he has the nuances. He has the inclination for such a thing, right? So which does get realized at the end of Parshas told us when Eisav goes and marries the daughter of Yishmael. and Rashi points out, because when he saw Yitzhak blessing Yaakov to marry a Jewish girl, so to speak, Jewish girl, not a pagan, not a Canaanite, that'd be more accurate. So he got the message. Don't think that Yitzhak and Rivka didn't tell him up until now. Of course they did. They didn't get the message. Just like you should build planes safer. Yeah, I know, right? You understand? You should build boats safer, but it's not until the Titanic goes down that they go, oh my goodness, what are we doing? It's only after the Titanic that they started to think about how to build safer boats. Don't you realize, this is a danger? Until there's a problem, there's no problem. You can't get it's as obvious as it is. You can't get the Western world to take anything seriously until it falls apart. You see that with the Middle East right now. It's only with the fall of Syria they ever go, oh my goodness, this is serious stuff. Right? It's only when things fall apart that they go, maybe Iran can't be trusted. They have to go. That's how a Sadiq thinks. So Yitzhak is right. But so there are three possibilities. If Rivka hadn't done what she had done, Eisav would have come in, and Yitzhak would have thrown him out. Right? That's the possibility number one. The possibility number two.
Oh, but are you saying that if he had thrown him out, I think you mentioned something similar to this last week, then he would have been so devastated because then he would have thought that his father thinks that he's hopeless.
That's right. It would have been worse. The relationship.
Okay, sorry, please continue.
Right. The relationship between Yaakov and Eisav would have been horrendous, far worse than it is now. The second possibility is what happened. So he felt rejected from his mother, right? Which is not explicitly pointed out by the Torah, but he felt like his brother at least tricked him, right? But he felt that his father was on his side. That's the second possibility. But the best would have been if Yitzhak had listened to Rivka, or been able to hear it from Rivka, is a better way of saying it. In which case, he would never have set Eisav up to get the bracha. He would have always trained him and raised him. Your role is to be the sidekick, and we could say it a little nicer than that, but nevertheless, because I don't know if they knew what a sidekick was, but he would say, he would raise him as the attendant. Your role is to take care of Yaakov. That's your greatness. If you had raised him that way, it would be a whole different game. But since this is how it went down, the relationship from now to the end is going to be antagonistic. But not as antagonistic if Rivka hadn't saved the day. That's how it's marked. Right? What Eisav exhibited after Yaakov tricked Eisav was an overwhelming hatred. These are Nazis marching down the streets of Berlin. Right? We don't. You said, does Eisav have an antipathy towards the Jews? Absolutely. But we don't have Nazis marching down the streets of Washington. This isn't an army. There's no Adolf Hitler standing at the gates of Berlin, right? The Brandenburg gates and with hundreds of thousands of Hitler youth. That's not what's going on now, right? There's an underlying antipathy towards the Jews, which is exhibited by a very small percentage of nutcases. But the vast majority of Eisav is just passive, neither positive nor negative. They're just passive, right? That's the state in which Yaakov knows. That's why Rivka sends a message and says, Yaakov's calmed down now, right? It's Germany 1923. We're good. It's not 1935 where Hitler rises to power. It's the 1800s. Germany's fine. Poland's fine. right? England's fine. America, we're all fine. You follow? Now,
Mhm.
you can't mess it up. And that's what Yaakov did. He sends messengers. What was that?
How does he mess up?
He sends messengers that are left well alone. He wasn't.
How is that? How is sending messengers messed up?
Well, see, I'll tell you, you see, what is the thing that pacifies Eisav? You see, Eisav is head to head all the way through. Yaakov doesn't know that Eisav is pacified until he hugs him. Right?
Oh,
Because
that's
he
where
isn't
Dina comes.
pacified till then. What is the thing that pacifies him? One thing.
It's when he bows down to him.
When he bows down. Exactly. All the presents. Nothing. Let them do. You can't bribe Eisav. You can't build them hospitals. I remember I tried to I reached out to a billionaire to try, and I completely blew it. Jewish guy, and was trying to get him to learn, right? So he said, "What do you want from me?" I said, "I want you to be involved in some Jewish cause." I forget exactly the words I used. So he says, "I am." I said, "No, but I want you to give to Jewish things because all I ever saw him give to was these non-Jewish things." So he said, when I give to these non-Jewish things, I'm doing it for the purpose of elevating the profile of the Jews, because the non-Jews see, right, a guy named Cohen giving to the opera house, they go, "Oh, the Jews," right? That's how Yaakov thinks. And it doesn't do any good. If anything, it makes it worse. Right? What pacified Eisav? Being submissive to Eisav.
So is that where Dina comes in? If he hadn't put her in a box, then that would have sort of been part of that whole bowing down type of a thing.
So the Dina being abducted is the Chazal telling us that Yaakov could have got Eisav. It is possible to turn him around. It is possible.
And that's the area, but that was
What's that?
Eisav. That was the area that Eisav was most vulnerable. No,
I don't know if this is most vulnerable, but it is one of the ways you can get him. Right?
okay.
And this is a learning process. It could very well be that Yaakov doesn't know how to get Eisav. And so we're in a program throughout history now of figuring out how to get Eisav, how to work together with Eisav. It's not so simple. Building hospitals and museums and running for office and being professors and the Manhattan Project and all these things the Jews have benefited the Western world do not do it. Now, what does
Right, he wants cover.
He wants covered.
He wants covered, and also in a way, through Dina, he would have been reattached to the mission, and in this way, he would have probably risen in his father's eyes, right? Because if he had married Dina, then now he's part
Right.
of the mission that Yaakov has, and
Right.
so this would have made his father happy, which would have made him happy.
Right. Could be.
Wow, I never thought all this before.
Could be. It's an unknown because it didn't happen. It's a bit of an unknown because it didn't happen. Whether Hazal mean it would have worked or he should have tried. You see, Yaakov is fascinating. Is Rashi says he did three things. He eventually did four things because he bowed down. But in preparation, he did three things. He prayed, he sent presents, and he divided the camp. He prepared for war, right? So you see from here a very important idea in Hishtadlus, which is something we're going to see with Yosef. Except for praying, none of those things were effective. What was effective was the bowing down. Yet Yaakov's not punished for doing something, the famous fault, which we're going to talk about, which I believe is highly misunderstood, that Yosef was punished because he asked the butlers for help is not a lack of hishtadlus. It's not an issue with hishtadlus, but that's going to be something we'll talk about when we get there. But nevertheless, Yaakov did a hishtadlus that was not effective, and that's perfectly fine. Clearly, hishtadlus means that you've got to do everything that's possible, even though it was not necessary. But you've got to do everything that's possible. But interestingly, the Torah points out, or Rashi brings it, that the Almighty replaced Yaakov with all the presents that he gave to Eisav.
What?
At the end of the Parsha, when it says that Yaakov went to Sukkot whole, Shalem, right? So Rashi points down that God not only made sure that he was okay, right? But that all the money that he sent to Eisav in the presents he got back.
Oh.
So you see, hishtadlus, that even though was not effective, was not the hishtadlus who's going to do the trick. Is nevertheless the Almighty. You've got to do whatever you can do.
I still don't understand why it didn't occur to him, based on what you're saying, because I didn't understand this before. But he knew his brother, didn't he? Like he knew his taivas, etc. Didn't Yaakov know Esav's taivas? In other words, he liked kavod. He liked to be, that's part of the reason why he also killed Nimrod, right? Like he got to kill Nimrod and take the vest that was so special. Like, right. So kavod is very important to him. And then the other taivas as well. So I would have thought that he would have known his brother really well.
It's a fascinating thing that you're saying. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But even till today, we Jews do not believe in giving Eisav kavod.
Why not?
It could very well be that we don't believe in giving kavod to ourselves either.
What does that mean?
There's no such thing as I know in Israel they do have these things, but I think everybody thinks they're silly. But we don't have a Nobel Peace Prize. It's just
you
silly.
mean the Jews don't have a Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah. They do have in Israel. The Israeli government puts these things in. They have I forget what they're called. They have this states award or something like that. I think the whole country sort of looks at it like it's silly. But they do believe in it when it's the non-Jews who award it. So you win the Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, you're a big deal. Are you follow? But deep down, I don't think Jews or Israelis think it's anything. It's silly, and therefore they don't give it, and they don't value it, and they don't think the goyim, the non-Jews, are going to value it either.
So you're saying we're stuck in our own mentality, and that's the reason why we're not able to understand mentality?
I don't know, but I think that's true. I don't think between us chickens, I've been part of these things where they give out these awards, community, Chesed Shem Tov and things like that. I mean, anybody who takes it seriously, you got to stand up for him. He got the award this year. Does anyone take it seriously?
No, but maybe the reason we don't take it seriously is because we understand that this is part of who we are. It's not something that it's like what God, I don't know how to explain it, because now I'm thinking about what you're saying, and it's true. We're not into this whole kavod business, because it's like, it's not us, it's God. We're just doing what God wants us to do. So that's why we don't have a connection to that. And meanwhile, Eisav needs that.
Eisav needs that, right? But it's not us.
So it's very strange. I mean, we're talking about it, so we must understand that that's what they need.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. They need it. I mean, the whole cultures around it. You know, Purple Heart and Nobel Peace Prize and the Pulitzer Prize. What's the Nobel Peace Prize? Right, a bunch of people in Sweden who you know know better than a bunch of village idiots, right? Say, oh, you created peace, right? Time Magazine Man of the Year or Person of the Year, I think call it now. Oh, so Time Magazine, well, they really know. Right,
But Rabbi, this is their version of kavod.
That's their version of cat. So they take it seriously. But so the Jerusalem Post doesn't do Man of the Year because it would be a joke.
Maybe it's their version of what we understand, that each person has their own special mission in life, and they don't have the spiritual language, so this is their physical language.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And then therefore, when Yaakov bows down to him, I'll tell you a story, okay? So my daughter was in seminary with a girl whose father was a conservative rabbi, right? So I said to her, apparently the mother was like from or something, or had shaykhs to being from or connection. I don't know exactly the whole story, but so they got their children to go to yeshiva places to learn. So the daughter was in seminary. So I said to my daughter, you know, why don't you invite the parents over for Shabbos? Right? We'll have them for dinner or whatever. So they came over. They're very nice. And at one point, it's just me and the conservative rabbi. We're by ourselves. I turned to him and I said, Rabbi, just between us chickens, right? What's the biggest problem you have as a conservative rabbi? Just, I won't say anything, just between us, right? So he looked at me and he said, Chabad. And I looked at him like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, Chabad? Like, how does Chabad give you so many problems? Right? So he said, because whenever we have an argument in the shul, whether we should stand up, whether we should sit down, or whether we should put the candle here, whether we should, whatever it happens to be, there's always someone who says, in Chabad, this is what they do. Right? What he says is not relevant. There's no weight. You follow? It's Chabad. Now, if you go and ask, and I mentioned this to Chabad rabbis, they're in shock. Because from their vantage point, they don't see they're having that kind of impact because no one's telling them. It's not on the news. Oh, the Chabad rabbi, you follow? But it grinds.
And also, they're not seeking it. They're not seeking that feedback.
They're not seeking it. Right.
They're just doing their job.
Right. So you see, my wife is involved in some various Jewish groups. One of them is engaged with trying to fund different programs that help with anti-Semitism. So she was at one, I've heard this from quite a few people, but she was at one particular group, very wealthy people, and they're talking about, the anti-Semitism, etc. And one of the speakers got up and said, the problem is that the anti-Semites are very organized and we are not. Right? And this is absolutely not true. Absolutely. 100%. Totally not true. But we think it's true because you go around the world and you get off at any airport and you're going to find that they sell chocolate. They sell watches, Swiss watches. They sell jewelry. They sell perfume. They sell liquor. It's not that the liquor people are organizing the airports, right? So they have to sell liquor and not toothpaste, right? What is it? People want liquor. People want cigarettes. People want perfume. People want jewelry. People want, right? The taxes on these happen to be high, right? Well, and therefore it's not an organization. There's no organization, right? People like chocolate. All around the world, anti-Semites are coming out of the woodwork. No one's organizing them. There is a certain amount of organization that's going on, but that's not what's going on. What's going on is the anti-Semites are coming out of the woodwork, right? Like the cicadas, right? They're not being organized. Not the cicadas in Canada are telling the cicadas in New Jersey, it's time, right? Get out of the trees, get out of the ground. That's not what's going on, right? Just something, whatever's triggering these is triggering them. Right, you follow? What's triggering all the anti-Semites? Like, what? Nothing personal, but what are you Jews doing that's ticking them off?
Just being ourselves.
Well, what are you doing? You tell me.
We're just being ourselves. We're doing
Yeah,
what
I
God
understand,
wants
but what
us
are
to
you
do.
doing? What is it you do that just ticks them off?
Not being Shomer Shabbat.
What's that?
Not being Shomer Shabbat.
No, the opposite. You are being Shomer Shabbat. You're trying to be a better person. You're working on yourself.
I understand, but how does that tick this guy off who's like pro-Hamas, right, anti-Semite, right, whatever it is, the idiots, right, all these guys, what are you doing that ticks these people off?
We just exist. That's it. We just exist. We are, God's messenger in the world, and they don't want to see them God's messenger.
No.
We just exist. That's it. That's all they're bothered by.
No, that's true, but it's more than that. You see, when a Jew is writing an article in a newspaper, or a Jew is presenting a program, or a Jew is teaching science, or a Jew is doing anything, a Jew is asking, what is the truth? What is the reality? Is this really happening? What do you mean by that? Right? In the non-Jewish world, they live in this airy-fairy world of existence and non-existence where nothing is really defined and everyone's happy and everything's fine. And they can live like that. And so the United Nations can create an international court of justice that has nothing to do with justice. And they're fine with that. Until the Jews say, kind of, where's the justice? Where's the law? Where's the rule? Are you following according to the principles you say? They're not saying Jewish, not Jewish, you follow? But it's a Jew that points out, is it true or is it not true? We think that's obvious, but they want to live in this airy-fairy world of Nobel Peace Prizes. Right? And now you've got a purple heart. And you understand? You follow? They want to live in this airy-fairy world that has no definition, so you can be anything you want to be. And a Jew is asking, Jews are, they're a secular Jew. I remember when I first started to get involved in outreach, this is in Israel, this is 40 years ago, maybe longer. No, it can't be longer. Yeah, 40 years ago. So we were asked to do a program on a kibbutz for secular Jews who came picking oranges. It was my first experience of like talking to people who were not religious at all. I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't know what we were doing, all trying different things. So I thought I'd do the class, the difference between Jews and non-Jews. Big mistake. I mean, I thought people would be interested in this. And the Jews were driving me crazy. That's not why Jews are different. They were persecuted. They didn't want to buy it. There were two non-Jews in the group. And I was desperate. So I said to the two non-Jews, I said, I hope you don't mind me asking you this, but do you think there's a difference between Jews and non-Jews? He said, absolutely. So I said, what? He says, we've been on many of these programs where you go picking oranges. They're all over Europe. You pick grapes in Italy. You pick mushrooms in France, whatever it is. Like, they're all you give these summer programs. We've done it before. And everyone, it's all the same. You go out, you pick the grapefruits, you go and work, you come home, you have a few beers, you talk about girls, you watch some movies, you go to bed. Right? In Israel, the same thing. You go, you pick the oranges, you come home, you watch a few movies, you talk about girls, and that's it, right? You follow? And then, but these people, they don't do that. What they do is they do all those things, and then they're staying up all night talking about the meaning of life. Is there a God, democracy, the president, right? The issues in the paper, whatever happens to paper. We've never, this is what they said, we've never met people like this.
Wow.
So a Jew thinks you're talking to me about, did the president do it or he didn't do it? That's what you're talking to me about. Are you follow? So I think you're interested in it. They're not interested in it. They don't care. They don't want to know. Right? They really don't want to know. The presidential debates, right, were watched by, I think it was like 50 million people, 60 million people. There are 300 million people in this country. Right? I mean, and these 240, okay, so some of them are children, but there's 240 million people that don't care. They just don't care. They want to watch the game, have a few beers, and go to sleep. I'm not sure how many of the 60 million care either. You understand? They just don't care. They really just don't care. You follow? That's what it's about. And the Jew says, what is it all about? You understand? That's what it means to stand up for God. That's what it means. So we drive them batty. So now they got an excuse to march against the Jews. They're going to use it. You follow? So you see that a Jew represents kavod. We don't think we represent kavod, but they see it that way. You listen to Bill
Wait,
Clinton.
did you say that again?
The Jews represent kavod.
But it's God's kavod, it's not ours.
Yes, that's right. But we represent it. So when a Jew stands up, you listen to Bill Clinton talking about Yitzhak Rabin, he's got tears in his eyes. The guy's met every president in the world, kings. But who does he miss Yitzhak Rabin? Because he stood for truth. That's what Eisav wants. He wants to be important. That was all about. When Yaakov bows down, he wasn't intending to do it. He didn't understand it. But when he bows down to him because he's forced to, you might be able to say the whole experience that Yaakov is going through this is only to teach Yaakov and us Jews how to deal with Eisav.
You're saying that he had no intentions to bow down to Eisav, and the only reason he did it was because he kept coming towards him in an antagonistic way. So he realized that the gifts, etc., did not work.
Right. That's what Rashi says. He only prepared 3 things. He didn't prepare bowing down. If he had thought about it, I think he could have done it better. Right? He would have practiced. He would have got the whole family to bow down.
What is the significance of him bowing down 7 times then?
Yeah, that's beyond my pay grade, the 7, and you're getting into Kabbalah and all kinds of things. I can't go. It's not my cup of tea, but nevertheless, the principle of the concept. So we've got one final idea, one final question that we have to answer. What is the meaning of the limping? Right, and that's
I forgot about the limping.
Right, that's crucial in this whole and everything.
Are you saying the limping has to do with the bowing?
No, I'm not saying that.
No. I thought maybe if it was connected, maybe that was the reason why he had to limp, was to realize that he needs to be like subservient to Eisav.
Yes. Right. But the limping is not that. If it is, I'm not aware of a connection there. So what does it mean that he didn't limp until the sun came out? Right? You follow? That's that question. He was perfectly fine until the sun came out. What's that?
Corey said something. Corey says the limping ties into your opening statement on being aware of danger.
Oh, that's interesting. The limping ties into your opening statement. I think you're on the right track.
In the nighttime, he didn't see the pain. Maybe he felt the pain, but when we talk about the daylight, maybe in the light of day, he noticed that he was hit as opposed to not seeing it during the night. And sometimes, what they say, like when a child gets a needle at the doctor,
Yes.
if you distract them, that they don't feel it going in. But when they're watching the needle go in, suddenly there's pain and tears and screaming and everything. So same thing when we're talking about the airplane, knowing the turbulence, knowing the danger, or just having a smooth flight without knowing that the engine blew out. Similar situation here.
It's very interesting. Let's take it a little further. What was the state of Yaakov after he's finished with the angel? How would you describe his condition?
He probably felt good that he overcame the angel.
That's possibly true. What?
Utterly exhausted. I would be utterly exhausted.
Not only utterly exhausted. Can you imagine any one of us up against Mike Tyson when Mike Tyson was in his prime?
I'd run for it.
You can't run from it. You're in the ring. A Malach is far more powerful than Mike Tyson. Right? What was the state of the Jews after the Holocaust?
Exhausted, yes.
Exhausted.
We were beat up.
That's what we said, right? We just came up against the Malach of Eisav. That's what the Holocaust was. We won, but we were a mess. We were gone. We were like wiped out, right? On every level, learning, Torah, money, finance, talent, everything. We were gone. We were a mess. But there's one thing the Malach cannot touch, the Gidanasha. Or put it differently, actually, that's the Gidanasha that's the only thing that the Malach can touch. The angel touches the Gidanasha. And the Sefer Chinuch explains the Gidanasha, when we meet, implicit in whatever meat you eat, as long as it's from a cow, implicit is the Gidanasha. The Gidanasha is not like any other aspect of kashrut. When it comes to like pork or any other tray, for instance, or something that's not shakted properly, there's something intrinsically bad about the pig that you can't eat it. It's not good for you on a ruchnius level. That's not the aspect of a Gidanasha. The Gidanasha, there's nothing wrong with it. There's a message going on here that you need to understand every time you eat a piece of meat. That when Hitler attacks the Jewish people, the one thing that he brings out is our belief that we will win. On October the 7th, what came out? Our understanding we are going to win. When they attack us, they attack the Gidanasha, that particular part of the animal of our thigh that represents this concept that we will win, because that's what happens. That's what happened to Yaakov. We will win. I've heard stories of people who were shipped off to Auschwitz and understood this may be the end for me, but it's not the end for the Jewish people. These things bring out the famous story of Golda Meir, that she said, we have a secret weapon. The Arabs don't realize we have a secret weapon, the Mediterranean. That's really not true, because there are many peoples who have disappeared and they had their backs to the Mediterranean, right? But she doesn't know how to explain that we believe we're going to win. The more we're attacked, the more the more we realize it. But when did the Jewish people, you see, the Jewish people knew they were going to win throughout the Holocaust, and even when the Holocaust was over. but we can't articulate it. We're not aware of it. It's not spoken about. You don't talk about it when you're being in a cattle car to Auschwitz. But 5 years after 1948, when the sun starts to come out, our strength gets, our belief becomes stronger. October the 7th was devastating. We were all there. But not long after did our faith and our strength and our understanding and our commitment and a belief in who we are and where we're going and how this is going to end up become stronger. Now it's much stronger than it ever was. Definitely since 1948. We're very empowered. That's the Gidon Nasha. That's the relationship between Yaakov and Eisav. Eisav is going to bring out the greatness of the Jewish people. It's much better if you do it in the right way, and you can do it in a managed way, and it can be in a positive way, and a symbiotic relationship that's healthy and not devastating. But nevertheless, that's what Eisav brings out in Yaakov. If we do it right, Eisav will help make Yaakov great. Maybe we'll make a hat out of that. Make Yaakov great again.
What about the Gida
I hope that was
Rabbi?
clear. What's that?
What does the Gida Nashe represent again?
The Gidon Nashe represents that we are going to win. The Mashiach's coming. The Jewish people are going to survive. The Yaakov, despite the fact of fighting the Malach of Eisav, of going through the Holocaust, walks out. But he doesn't realize who he is and what he has done and his future and the greatness of his future until the sun comes out.
And he feels the Gid HaNasha pain.
It's not that he feels the Gid HaNasha pain. Well, yes, you're right. Feels the Gid HaNasha pain, but we reflect on what we've just been through. The entire one of those powerful, if not the most powerful force in the world at the time, the Nazis, came and did everything they could to destroy the Jews, and we walked out, and now we're stronger than ever. It's a tremendous lesson for us. That we are this incredible people, and the world is slowly recognizing it. But it would be more helpful if we recognize it, and to some degree we do recognize it. But it takes an awareness. It takes the sun coming out for us to realize who we are. We are
what
not
does the sun coming up represent? What does the sun coming up represent?
An awareness. We look at the sun and we realize that the Hitler killed 6 million people, destroyed every institution we've got. There's hardly a Jewish institution that's older than 70 years old. And now in every sphere, we're stronger than we ever were. We've rebuilt ourselves. No one could do that. If you remember 9/11, right? The terrorists took down 3 buildings. The stock market crashed. They thought that was the end of America. And George Bush gave that speech, and we're all back. Right? But those 3 buildings. Imagine if the whole of Washington was flattened, or New York. That's what Hitler did. He took out everybody, the money, the education. You couldn't find a Rebbe to teach a school, to teach a class. Now there's more Jewish learning going on than there's been in the last 2,000 years. The Jewish wealth is just unbelievable. The political power we have is phenomenal.
Careful, Rabbi.
What's that?
We don't want people to think we rule the world.
That's amazing. The sun's coming out. We're recognizing that we're going to win. Despite what you want to do. You see, October the 7th, what happened? Devastating. But every time they attack us, we come out better. You think they would get the message, but you think we would get the message. That's the sun coming out. We're going to win. Okay.
That's another thing about the kavod. We don't see our kavod.
We don't see it. Right. Exactly. We don't see it.
So maybe the whole point is maybe the whole point of trying to recognize it in Eisav is first to recognize it in ourselves. And until we recognize it in ourselves, we can't really, maybe that's why he finally bows down. Right? If he's aware that he's going to win, he has no problem with bowing down.
I don't know. But you see on the other side, it's not just the anti-Semites. You have these non-Jewish politicians who get tremendous, I think they're genuine. Mike Huckabee, other people, right, who seem to get genuine pleasure, Douglas Murray, and of being on the side of the Jewish people. We're not the only people that are persecuted and tortured and mistreated in the world. But they feel the kavod of standing on our side. It's important. Like nothing else.
Interesting. We're going to have to listen to this one like 5 times before we really understand it.
Thanks, everybody. Nice meeting you,
Thank
Tony.
you, Rabbi Bar.
Pleasure.
All the best.
Rabbi, I noticed
Yeah.
one small thing, if I may. I'm sorry
Yes, sir.
okay. You know, I in the if we look in the actual parsha itself, leading up to the meeting of Yaakov and Eisav, and when we see he tries to placate him with sending the camps before him, and it's very interesting because the use of the term hanim is very, it's used very much so. And we have when he's sending his camps forward, and he says the whole idea is like, you know, the Parsha uses the word kiamar achapra panav b'machaneh ha'olechet lefanai, that I and it's very interesting because, you know, we say that with the gifts I will find favor with him, but, you know, if we look at the shorish of the word achapra, it's like achaper, where we're going to have an atonement with him. And it's very, but and it says his, you know, and it says, but fanav, we use again that word, right, is his face, or, you know, if we use a direct translation, and then later on it says ha'olechet b'acharei ken erei fanav, I'll see his face, ulai yisa panai, and then he will maybe lift my face. And it's very interesting because part of it is he knows that he's giving him these gifts. He's hoping that these gifts maybe show again a way of atonement. I don't think he for maybe on his end, but I don't think. But part of me wonders when he says "Yisaf anai," when he'll lift my face. If already then maybe Yaakov started understanding even at that point, then well, how do you lift my face? Well, I have to be bowed down to you. My face has to be lowered to you in order for you to lift it at that time. And
Ooh.
and so when we look at the, you know, so it continues on as we keep going. He wakes up, he takes the family, at night they start moving forward, they cross the ford, he separates with them, and that's when he has the struggle with the angel. Now going back to the struggle with the angel, what a very interesting thing when you spoke about the light, you know, Alot HaShachar, they wrestled into Alot HaShachar. So Alot HaShachar is really when we see the beginning of the rising of the sun. But the beginning of the rising of the sun is actually when I was in the military, I will never forget this. Like, so when does the sun begin rising? When the night is darkest. You have to be at the darkest point of the night for the light to start to rise. So Alot HaShachar is actually one of the darkest points of the night. And so in the height of it all, and when we speak about the energy, the injury, the injury sustained in the fight there, again, these are all the moments of awakening, and then that's when they stop right in the darkest point as the sun is starting to rise. Okay, so now he says, you know, release me. I can't keep doing this. The malach, and as the ish here, what we know to be malach, and Yaakov makes a condition that you bless me. So he blesses him. He gives him he gives him a blessing. Yaakov asks his name, and why do you need my name? No problem. And he gives him the blessing, and that's it. So then, but then we look at this. Vayikra Yaakov Shem Makom Peniel. So, and why? Ki re'iti Elohim panim el panim. I've seen God face to face. So this concept of face is being brought in, and it's very interesting, face to face. So Peniel, but it's now we jump to so remember the name Peniel. Peniel, my face. We can say my face is God, but then we go to Vayizrach lo hashemesh ka'asher avar et Penuel. It turns into Penuel, and if you look at Peno, it would be his face almost. So we can say that the two aspects that we're saying, my face, Peniel, mine, and I understand my godly mission in the essence of it. I've wrestled with, you know, I've gone through these things. But Penuel, he knows now he has to face Eisav in this coming day. And Pinoel, as he's leaving Pinoel, he's also realizing that not only is my face the face of God, but Esav's face. Maybe Pinoel is the face of God here too. As he leaves that place, he's not just so the panim el panim of seeing Hashem that way, understanding that our face is God's face in that sense, and understanding that there is that purpose that's serving. Because until then, until that moment also, he kept saying, your servant, Yaakov. He's sending everything forward, your servant. So he started to understand the idea of, but I believe that, I remember when I was in yeshiva high school, my the Rosh Yeshiva, he spoke about how every Jew today, within him dwells Yaakov and Eisav, and it's a struggle of Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, we can call it, and we use Ve'afta Hashem b'kol levavcha, the two hearts, the Yetzer Tov, Yetzer Hara, very famous Rashi, and I see it there. I see it. It's just very interesting because even we see it on the worldly scale, as you mentioned, from the Shoah to today with the craziness that we see, but even within ourselves, when we have that trouble giving ourselves the maybe a level of kavod, because we know the kavod isn't ours, but we have to say, Peniel, my face is Hashem's face, and then the world, Penoel is also Hashem's face too. So when we're looking out to it and understanding, so to give the kavod to Eisav in a sense is it, it has to come from that again, knowing that you have to give it to the godly face of Eisav, which serves the greater purpose of the Jewish people in that sense. It's just I just looking at the psukim as we're talking, and I was just these are things started bouncing around in my head. I'm sorry that it's loose. I just put it together now, but
yeah, let's love it. I love it. Way to go, Cole.
Me too. I love it too.
But this is very beautiful. I appreciate it. I hope to be showing up more consistently. And thank you, Dr. Weinstein, for introducing me to the shiur.
Okay, way to go. Okay, Phil. Thank you.
Thanks,
All the
everybody.
best.
Thanks, Hogwarts. Take care. Good night.
Thank you.
Shkaya, Laila Tov.
Laila Tov. Bye.